Hey folks, this is Kalani. I'm going to be looking at the Demon Hunter DPS spec, that's Havoc, and how to get the most DPS out of your Demon Hunter for the Prepatch 7.0. Now this is going to be a lot quicker than most of my other guides, so hopefully that's a good thing. Let me know if it's not. But we're going to look at the abilities that we're going to be using very quickly, the talents that we're going to choose, stat priority, and optimal rotation. So we have Fell Rush, where we rush forward, dealing a bit of chaos damage, 2 charges on a 10-second cooldown. It's going to be very important. We also have Demon's Bite, quickly attack for physical damage. This is how we generate our Fury. We use Fury, it caps at 100. You don't ever want to go over the cap, and we spend it by using Chaos Strike. So this costs 40 Fury, deals chaos damage, and crits refund half the price, so it refunds 20. Now there's 2 damaging components there, you see them 1, 2. So only one of them needs to crit to get that refund, but that makes crit incredibly important. We also have I-Beams, which is a 45-second cooldown, 50 Fury, a channeled I-Beam, which always crits, which we won't be using a great deal. We also have Blade Dance, 35 Fury, about a 9-second cooldown, deals a little bit of damage. It's an AoE ability, but it does increase your chance to dodge by 100% for 1 second. Looks very cool too. We have an Interrupt, which you want to be using as often as possible because it can generate 50 Fury. We have Throw Glaive, which you want to use if you're ever out of range of an opponent. It's a 10-second cooldown though. Looks pretty cool, can ricochet up to 2 additional enemies. Then we also have Chaos Nova, 30 Fury, 1 minute cooldown, and it's basically just an AoE stun. But it looks pretty cool. Then we also have Vengeful Retreat, which flips you backwards. Does a bit of damage, slows the enemy that it hits. Then we have Metamorphosis, which is our very big cooldown, and basically we just do more damage while it's active, and it transforms some of our abilities, but they're essentially entirely the same, you just deal more damage. We have a Crowd Control and Imprison, which only works on demons. Then we have 2 defensives, one's Blur, 1 minute cooldown, lasts for 10 seconds, increases your chance to dodge by 50% and reduces all damage taken by 35% for 10 seconds, which is pretty powerful. Then we also have Darkness, which is really RNG based, but basically you put down a cloud of darkness, any ally within it has a 20% chance to not be hit by any attacks. So 20% chance to basically negate any and every attack from any source, which is cool, but only a 20% chance makes that quite wonky. That's a 3-minute cooldown. Then we also have Spectral Sight, which allows you to see enemies through walls, allows you to see stealth enemies as well as hidden demons. And that's pretty much it for our abilities. So for talents, we're going to take Fell Mastery and Demon Blades. We can go through the other ones pretty quickly. So Fell Mastery increases damage of Fell Rush and it grants Fury when it hits a target. Chaos Cleave makes Chaos Strike hit an additional target 50% damage. Only worth it on a fight with 2 targets for the majority of the time, which is basically nothing that we have right now. Blind Fury increases the duration of I-Beam by 50%, which isn't really worth it because I-Beam isn't really worth it. Prepared reduces the cooldown of Vengeful Retreat by 10 seconds and it generates 40 Fury over 5 seconds if you damage at least 1 target. It's quite useful in that you can happily use it to Vengeful Retreat and then you can Fell Rush back in. But the DPS of Demon Blades is actually significantly higher right now, which is slightly disappointing because it's a passive ability and slows down Demon Hunter quite a bit. It doesn't feel quite as active. And then we have Demonic Appetite, where Chaos Strike has a chance to spawn a lesser Soul Fragment, and consuming any Soul Fragment grants 30 Fury, which again doesn't quite match Demon Blades, which is disappointing. So as far as stat priority goes, we're currently looking at Crit, Versatility, Haste and Mastery. That's how the numbers come out with this current rotation. I'm guessing it's basically Crit because of the refund portion of Chaos Strike. The more we refund, the less Fury we need to then Chaos Strike again, so it's just more Chaos Strikes, which is going to overall be more damage. And then Versatility, Haste and Mastery, as I understand it, come in relatively close, but Versatility definitely seems to be up there these days, definitely more so than Warlords. I see a lot of people wanting Versatility, which is nice to see. But obviously, Crit Versatility, if you can't get that, then go to Haste, then Mastery. So as far as rotation goes, it's actually very simple because we don't use half of our abilities. I can tell you right now, I-Beam doesn't really become worth it until 3 targets, because at 2 target you use Chaos Cleave anyway, and if you have a fight where you have 2 targets, but for some of the fight you have 4 or 5, you want to use I-Beam on the 4 or 5 instead of the 2 target anyway, so it's an ad clear. It's AoE more than single target. Same with Blade Dance. Blade Dance doesn't become worth it until 4 targets either, which means you kind of lose most of the buttons that we have, seeing as we're not 110 and we don't have access to our artifact. So what we'll be playing with mostly is Fel Rush, Demon Blades, which isn't really a button, and Chaos Strike. Obviously Metamorphosis, and then you can use Throw Glaive if you're out of range, or to pad your global cooldowns, get to that later, and then Vengeful Retreat for movement. Obviously you can happily use anything else as long as it's utility and not DPS based. Because if you start using other abilities besides these, you're actually going to do less DPS on a single target fight, which isn't what we really want. So the way this works is that we start with nothing and probably pretty far away from the boss, and then we Fel Rush in, Fel Rush again for the Fury, and while we're above 70 Fury, we want to make sure we're using Chaos Strike. So you can see we're passively generating Fury through Demon Blades, and when we get above 70, you want to use Chaos Strike and make sure Fel Rush stays below 2 charges, and use it for extra Fury generation. And that's basically a rotation. So a few things are a little weird about this. The first is that you should save Fel Rush charges if you need to move during a fight. Even if you don't damage something while moving, getting to your target is going to be higher DPS than saving that Fel Rush charge. Now the second thing is that the Demon Blaze passive is going to generate 15 or 30 Fury when you attack. And it's going to do that because it generates 15, but it can't proc. This passive cannot actually do anything while your global cooldown is active. It doesn't let it. So if you're attacking a lot, if you have a lot of crits and your Chaos Strike is just refunding constantly and you need to get rid of your Fury, what's going to happen is that these charges of Demon Blades which should have procced are going to start saving up, and they will start adding to the next one. So instead of one proc happening, it'll actually be 2, so you'll get 30 Fury instead of 15. I'll try and show you. So we use some global cooldowns, throw Glaive, just to make sure, and you get 30 and 30 instead of 15 and 15. Which, obviously, that's going to cap you really quickly, so you need to be very careful with your Fury and make sure if it goes above 70, give or take, that you're spending it on Chaos Strike. And it's actually quite an interesting playstyle, because you then become very aware of how much Fury you're generating, and you can't really control it, so it becomes more a juggling game with Fury rather than a rotation game, which is actually quite fun in one aspect of the game. Obviously some people might prefer having the Demon's Bite to push it instead of waiting for it to happen, but as I say, this is the highest DPS build and rotation right now, and that's basically it. So for your opener, what you want to do is use Metamorphosis. Now this is on a 5-minute cooldown, so it's probably going to be, once or twice a fight, and you want to, as I say, Fel Rush again, make sure you've got at least 80 Fury. If you cap, that's kind of bad, but whatever. Then you want to Metamorphosis and then just go from there. So you're using your, what is now Annihilation, but it's actually just Chaos Strike, and just go from there. It's the exact same thing. It really doesn't change anything, and it just does a lot more damage. So that is currently Havoc Demon Hunter DPS for the Prepatch 7.0, and honestly that is it. You do this, you'll be rocking those DPS meters. Might be a little slow, might be a little bit boring, but this is the highest DPS right now. Obviously things might change with the talent for Demon Blades. I know Blizzard do want to change it and they don't want this to be the highest DPS, so hopefully by 110 that might actually change, but that's what we've got for now. If you have any questions or queries, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll try and get back to you. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.